Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk. I always have interesting guests on. Today will be no exception. I do have an interesting guest today. I'll come to my guest today in 1 minute after I do my promos. So, how did I get into podcasting? Well, I produced a book for my good friend Stoney McGurn during COVID, and it was a long lockdown. So, lots of time to do writing, editing, and proofreading. The book is called And That's How It All Started. Stoney was born in Dowra in 1941. So basically, it's his life story from 1941, right up until a few years ago. Everything that you could imagine, from growing up in Leitrim all the way to coming here to the United States, driving a truck down south during the civil rights and all that. The book is available on Amazon. You can get it on audio as well if you like to listen to it and all that. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, a moving company here in New York City, and they've been around forever, longer than the New York City Marathon. They're running very, 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 very smoothly, and the wheels are greased up, and they're growing and growing and growing, expanding. And for the summertime coming in, busy season. So check them out. And if you are booking a job with Liffey, they do tell me book early in case the dates are gone, because they are the most popular moving company in New York City, around for 50 years. And when it comes to moving, let Liffey do the lifting. They also do commercial moves. And somebody did ask me, do we move pianos? Not only do we move pianos, some of our staff are able to play a piano. As for Taylor O'Reilly, she's our in-house piano player. Now, I always give a shout out to Paddy McCarthy of the Irish Examiner newspaper, irishexaminerusa.com. Look it up online. Paddy is great for reminding you of the events. For example, the Mayo Society dance coming up. You'll have all information on that. You'll have information on the Galway dance, on the Cork dance, lots of stuff on music. So I only can praise Paddy lots and lots and lots, because what you missed with me, you'll get with Paddy. Spread the news, and Paddy spreads the news. And we're very careful to always, as my father taught me, tell the truth and shame the devil. So let me get to my guest today. My guest today is James Prendergast. And this year, he's been honored as the Mayo Man of the Year. And I will have a woman on in a few days. So, James, tell us a little bit about you, where you were born, and the Irish connection. James, over to you.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good.
Pleased to meet you. Thanks for having me. Delighted to speak to your audience, and thank you for welcoming me. Yes, my parents, my father's from Mayo, Coolcun. That would be outside of some people may be familiar with the Garrymore Pitch, Killinriva. The small town of the church is Ballyglass. My grandparents are buried in the parish off from the Coolcun area. Village is Roundford. Our big town, of course, is we're going out towards Crossboyne into Claremorris. I have cousins and relations in Irishtown, Ballandine. Little shout out to the cousin Prendergast as well there.
Okay, very good.
And my mother's from Waterford, and we have cousins down in Waterford, Cork, and Dublin. And of course, my wife's family extends from, her mother is from Swinford, Mayo, as well.
Okay, so let me get a few questions in there, because some of those big questions. So Coolcun is basically, I think, it should be a wooded area, because that's where the name originates. And Claremorris is on the N60, and all those little towns around there. I'm very familiar with Ballandine and all that area. Now,
Yeah.
your mother, Esther, is from Wexford or Waterford.
GB Waterford, Upper Ballyduff.
Okay, now that begs the question. Your mother is from Waterford, your father is from Mayo. I have to ask, how did they meet?
Well, a lot of the old Irish are familiar with New York, where they all came out, mostly in the 50s. They met in the Jaeger house.
Okay, that's great. Because I had this perception that they met in Ireland. And I thought, God, did your father cycle to Waterford to meet this beautiful woman? No, he got to New York and went to the Jaeger house and met a beautiful girl and married her. Okay, that's good. That answers that question.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a great question, but things are in my head I have to ask. So Claremorris, I remember, is Clár Cundain Wirish Oscailga. And when we were going to high school in Ireland, or indeed law school, there was a poet called Rafferty, and he had a poem which we all learned, and it was kind of interesting. It was about spending one night in Claremorris. This was the dream of the guy in the poem. And it says, Clár Cundain Wirish, in the town of Claremorris, I'm travelling, Rahi me Guji, Clár Cundain Wirish. Agus be ihe an a gon, and he'd have one night there. And it's like his dreams go, is to have one night there. And I'm not sure if the poem is called An Spalpeen Fauna, which it was a term in Irish for back in that time. It was a kind of a cool idea, I thought, of workers that didn't want to have a fixed job. So they would travel from town to town, spend a few nights in Claremorris with a nice family and, get fed and taken care of. And then maybe work on the field making hay, wait for a few days, and then maybe move on to Ballantyne. So it's a kind of a romantic story. So let's continue with you. You were born in the Bronx, I assume, yeah?
Yeah, well, they met up now. I was born in the Bronx, started off in Kingsbridge Road and up in the Bedford Park section. Back in the day, I attended Our Lady of Mercy Grammar School and then moved on to Cardinal Hayes High School. All sorts of jobs growing up. Like every kid, we challenged
Yeah.
ourselves from shining shoes to working in supermarkets to gas station, being everybody's painter, mechanic, paper routes, auto server, going up to Casco Mountains and Ireland and the lights. And we were well-rounded. We were always in Gaelic Park, playing the Irish music. And the same as my parents
Yeah.
in my time now was in the 80s. What was popular was the Archway Inn with Tom Brogan, another Mayo Man.
Yeah.
And I met my wife there in the Archway Inn, and we had always had a blast there on the dance floor and going up to
Yeah.
Dirty Nellies and all those places.
Well,
So
I don't even have to ask you this question, because if you mentioned the Archway Tavern where you met your wife, Teresa, I would say that you were a very good dancer. You know
oh
how
yeah,
to jive.
right.
I've never seen you dancing, but when you mentioned the Archway Tavern, which was owned by people from Mayo as well, by the way, I think were from Killala, then that was a dancing ballroom scene. Obviously, you had drinks and whatever else, and beautiful ladies, but you had to show your skills off on the tiles on the floor. That was the Archway. So you met.
Oh yeah, and I did.
You sure did. I bet you're quite a star on the floor. You met Teresa there. You got married in what year did you get married?
1989.
So 1989, and she only passed away recently.
Yeah. Sadly, she died unexpectedly. We didn't expect it at all, and now she's in
Well,
God's grace.
well, I'm sorry to hear that, because I did a podcast here with another lady, Moore, and we did a podcast on death, dying, and grief. And we were, both of us were saying that it depends on how long the person is ill, the way different people deal with it. For
Yeah.
example, my mother was very ill for a very, very long time. So it was no big surprise when she passed away. And one night, a few months before she died, I was sitting by her bedside and we were drinking hot whiskeys, hot toddies. And after 3 or 4 hot toddies, she asked me a very profound question, I thought. And she looked at me and she said, John, I guess like every son, she thought I was intelligent, God love her. And she said to me, what is it like to die? And I thought to myself, oh, that's a question. So I got an inspiration from a singer called Jackson Browne. And Jackson Browne has a lyric in a song that says, dying like a flick of a finger, dying is the wink of an eye. And my mother looked up at me and her eyes brightened up and she smiled. And she said, thank you. She said, that gives me comfort. And then she said, can I say something else? I said, oh God, here we go. That's why I'm like it. I asked, answer one question. I said, now what? She said, you know what I hate? She said, I hate pain. I said, you hate pain? I said, everybody hates pain, but dying is the wink of an eye. Anyways, she was happy. A few months later, she passed on. But yeah, it depends on how long the person is ill. And if it's sudden, it's tougher because you're not fully ready. So I'm sorry for your loss of your wife. I know right here and now she'll be very proud of you being honoured as the Mayo Man of the Year 2025. But let me just, I'm going to call Jimmy to sing a song. Jimmy, the youth of today. Jimmy, I want you to sing a song for my guest, James Prendergast, and my listeners. Jimmy, can you do the red and green and Mayo? Okay, Jimmy's going to sing a song.
Oh, the green and red of Mayo, I can see it still. It's soft and craggy boglands, its tall majestic hills, where the ocean kisses Ireland and the waves caress its shore. Oh, the feeling it came over me to stay forevermore, for Patrick's Peak, where one Sunday every summer the pilgrims climb the reek, where St. Patrick in its solitude looked down across Clew Bay, and with the ringing of his bells called the faithful there to pray, there to pray. Oh, take me to Clare Island, the home of Granuel. Its water harbor fishes from the herring to the whale. And now I must depart it, and reality is plain. May the time not pass so slowly, for I'll set sail again, set sail again. Oh, the green and red of Mayo, I can see it still. Its soft and craggy boglands, its tall majestic hills, where the ocean kisses Ireland and the waves caress its shore. Oh, the feeling it came over me to stay forevermore, forevermore, forevermore.
Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy will go places, I tell you, with a voice like that. So I'm back to you, James, after that red and green and Mayo. So, okay, we got all that background in, and you said you played football and you played the accordion. You might be backing Jimmy someday playing the accordion. So tell me a little bit about the education now. Like you went on, obviously, to high school and all that. But I see then you got a degree in criminal justice and business administration. Did you choose those, or did they choose you?
Well, I got my degree, and it took me on into the Bureau of Fraud Investigation. What that was with the Human Resource Administration with the City of New York. Started off as a fraud investigator. Pretty much in my end, investigated all sorts of public assistance fraud, food stamps, Medicaid, all in all different directions. And I worked my way up into supervisor and other supervisors and manager, and I became the director there in the Queens borough. I did a good 20 years there, and it was a lot of work.
Okay.
And I moved on then into my own line of work, and I was very much involved with working with real estate and construction and carpenters and buildings and the likes. I pretty much was well-rounded with a lot of different
Yes,
things.
you are, yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to 4 of my regular listeners. And I'm going to ask them, we're going to have a little competition, because when you say the word fraud, investigator, fraud, and you put New York in it, I'm going to ask for Tony King, Jack Ryan, Marcus Hannick, and I had another guy lined up there as well. I'll come to him in a minute before I'll come. And I'm going to ask them to play charades. So they have to come up with a word, link it to fraud. So fraud, and the clue is New York City. So they can email me their answers, and I'll have prizes for them if they come up with the most words, say fraud in New York, and then say, for example, food stamps. That's one. Now I bet you that Tony King and Jack Ryan probably, it's like Jeopardy. They both may have the same answer. Okay, that's a little game. I don't usually do it. Now moving on, without playing too many more games, we have that, and we have fraud. All right, good enough. I'm going to come to something in a moment, the Project Children. But for now, I want to give my listeners some stats on the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is March 17th. So 50,000 people actually march in the parade, okay? And you are one of them, of course. 2 million spectators, starts at 11 a.m. and goes all the way up to 79th Street. Now, last night, I had a brief meeting with the Mayo Woman of the Year last year, Rose Maloney, and she knew and knows your father and your family. And she was able to back me up on information. Not that I was doing research, but she had the answers. She said, your father, your family were very devout marchers in the St. Patrick's Day Parade down the years. And you were very big, you, your family, and your dad, in carrying the banner, okay? And I trust her because she is always right and she knows her stuff. And indeed, there's one thing I could say about Rose Maloney. The person that would burn her for a fool, they would have wise ashes. So is Rose Maloney correct in saying your father, you, your brothers and family always carry the banner on St. Patrick's Day? Yes or no?
Oh, yes, 100% correct.
Okay, thank you, Rose Maloney, for
And
the shout out.
oh,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good. So she is right. Usually she is anyway. Then if she's not right, she thinks she's right. Okay, so let's see. Now, you mentioned in another chat we had about Project Children. Now, this is something I know nothing about. So maybe you can explain to me, my listeners, what is Project Children? How did you and your family get involved in it? Explain it all to me.
Oh, well, my father was my inspiration, and he marched up with Mayo ever since I was a child. And I can't remember a year I missed the parade. So
Okay.
we'd always be at his side or behind him or behind the banner as children. And as time went on, we participated with the Mayo members. But then when he passed back in 2010, we knew we had to pick it up and help the older folks now that spent their time there and
Okay.
dedicate our
Okay.
responsibility to keep the tradition going and alive. And it's something we're all proud of, and we like helping everybody with in all sorts of walks of life. And it's been always a pleasure. My brother Mike, John, Robert, brother-in-law is involved. He's from the Bell Mullet area. Joe Goff, son-in-law Billy Gamble, and my own son Stephen. So there's a lot of us that do get involved, as well as a lot of the Mayo members.
Okay.
We all jump in with Mike Regan and Marcus Hannock and Martin Lydon. And it was even going back in the day. It was great
Right.
old Patty Nee and Joe Flannery and Jim Lombard. We were
Hmm.
all participants with.
The Mayo Society actually goes back to 1879, okay?
Yeah.
And they've been doing good work and kindness and charitable things all the way through. The current president, of course, is Kieran McAndrew,
Yeah.
of course. Maureen Gibbons is the vice president. And I find, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that every time there's a new president in any walk of life, new president, new vice president, they bring a new certain energy and their own thing to it. Like, for example, I think I'd be right in saying that Kieran McAndrew and his vice president, Maureen Gibbons, what I noticed this year is they bring more for the youth, like sports especially. Sports, I think, and music for young boys and young girls. So it's like they're getting the green shoots ready to be involved. I think that's very healthy for young people to get involved. And of course, there's other members, like when they did the fundraising for Meg's Dean Mayo for her health condition, they went above and beyond and exceeded their expectations. And the word comes from Mayo, the metal, which means teamwork. And it just goes for all of us in Mayo because we're all similar. And I always say, even about my own family, we don't have to be joined at the hip every month, every year, whatever else. But if there's a crisis, we're all together. We all help each other. And that is a trait of people from Mayo. You're more than well deserving to be the Mayo Man of the Year this year. But let's get back. The question I asked you originally was Project Children. Can you explain a little bit to me about that for my listeners?
Oh, well, that was I was very involved with that back in the 90s, where we took in for a period of 5 years, probably from 1995, 96 to 2001, where we took in a child every summer into our home,
Okay.
welcomed with them with open arms, just to show them what life is all about over in New York, just to get away from the hostility back then, give them great memories and
Of course.
like a son or a daughter.
And that I used to sponsor scholarships when I had my restaurant there. And those kids would go down to Connemara and the Gates to learn how to speak Irish. It was a whole new experience for them. And I was very proud to do it because you feel good helping people sometimes when I do, and I know I do. And what I used to like about them is later in life, they would write me a letter or send me an email to actually thank me and say what an impact that few weeks had in their life learning how to speak Irish. And I'm sure and I hope that some of the people that stayed with your family in your house kind of keep in touch somewhat, maybe once a year, to say we remember when we stayed with the Prendergast family and the wonderful time we had. And maybe they were similar ages to your own family, maybe. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I was always the quiet type and don't like taking credit. I work behind the scenes, but one thing I can tell you is my daughters, especially Caitlin and Megan, do get interaction with, especially one of the young girls, Chantel, and from the Belfast area, I believe. And there's communication back and forth even to this day. And of course, with that, they recollect on prior memories and how they're doing on each side of the water.
Well, I met your daughter very, very briefly, and she's a very smart young girl, very astute indeed, and very tech savvy, may I say, indeed, which is good because we have the technology. So thanks to your daughter for setting up the computers for both of us. Now, just want to remind people the Mayo Society dance this year is on March 15th, okay? I'm just going to read out some details about it. So the ticket for the dance is, I think, $125 only. Yeah. Now, the journal page, everybody gets an ad in the journal. And I would recommend my listeners to support the journal this year. If you have a small business or a big business, you get a captive audience at the dance reading the journal. So for $100, you can get a white page, full page, and put all your business information in and promote yourself, like branding, as I call it. Now, if you feel a little bit richer, you can be a silver sponsor, we call them. That doesn't mean you have gray hair like me and you're silver. You just have $200 to spend. So lash out to $200 there. And if you're a golden sponsor, you can be a golden sponsor for $300. Ad content. I helped the journal last year. People would say, there, put an ad in for me for $100. And I'd say, well, what do you want me to say? He said, well, I'm retired. So some people would write a lyric of a song, like Alan from Ballina put in the words of Michael Gaughan, a beautiful song. My friend Stoney bought an ad too, and he put in some other old song, I guess. But it's nice to look back, and while you're at the dinner, you're reading the songs, and he said, I remember that song or something. Like now that I have Claire Morris in my head and Raftery and Filla, I might dig out that. So March 15th is the dance, and let's see, whatever deadline for the ad is March 3rd. So be sure and make your check out to the Mayo Society of New York, care of Rita Lins. So I will have Sean Gibbons McEntee on after you sometime. So now I have the Mayo Person of the Year, Mayo Man of the Year, and you're well deserving of it. So I think we covered everything. Bishop Kevin Sweeney is one of the officers, Kieran McAndrew and Maureen Gibbons, of course. So I want to give a quick shout out to another podcast I will have coming up before St. Paddy's Day. So there was a fight. Don't worry, Jim, it's not a fight at the Mayo Dance. It's a fight. It could happen though.
Well,
it's a fight. It's a fight.
It's a great time.
It's a wonderful time because we all get excited about it. Anyways, I have a sponsor coming up promoting Irish tequila made in Ireland, and it's called Irlandaise Tequila. And Mr. Phelan and his brother are promoting it, but they're sponsoring a fight in Madison Square Garden, March 16th, before the big parade. And the two boxers are Walsh and Sutherland. Walsh is a Cork man. Sutherland is from Aberdeen. So it'll be Madison Square Garden 16th. You can email me for more information. Tickets actually are reasonable for that type of venue, as low as $100, and up depending on if you want to be ringside and you might get a splash of blood in the face. So have you anything to add? I'm giving you the last words, James.
Well, basically, your support, if you can make it to the dance and support the journal book, would be absolutely terrific. It goes a long way. It supports many causes.
Yeah.
And the people who do sponsor a journal ad, it does come back to you in many different ways. People speak of you. People maybe visit your business, give it support in different ways that way. What your contributions are going a long way. for many causes, not only just for things happening in Mayo who could need our support, but throughout Ireland and even the United States. It also promotes our heritage, who we are, and how we are. It's a way of showing how we care, and it keeps us all involved. And it's a nice way of recognizing each other and appreciating everything one can do for everyone else.
Good.
Back in the day, with the support we even receive, even from Mayo, with the county council coming out every year.
Oh yeah,
Thank
you for mentioning that.
That's terrific. Even Father Gibbons from Knox Shrine, I'd like to shout out to him. He's always been very supportive. We had a big, he brought over a pilgrimage when we buried one of the apparitions witnesses, John Curry. We were very much involved with that. And we go through all walks of life with everything. It's with St. Cardinal Dolan. Been very supportive with us, even in the old St. Patrick's Basilica as well as St. Patrick's Cathedral. If you make it into the dance, it's terrific this year, especially it's on a Saturday the 15th, like you're saying, the boxing match is the following day, and then you got the St. Patrick's Day parade on the following day after that, which is a Tuesday. It's always a great time.
It's a great time. I'm glad you mentioned those ones because I'd forgotten. So yes, Mayo County Council. I don't remember Jerry Coyle is a personal friend of mine. Jerry Coyle was on this podcast too. He wrote a book about his father, like Irish freedom fighter. So Jerry had been on the same seat as you per se. So you are more than well deserving of this award, and I know everybody is proud of you, and they will be a big support for the dance because of you and Siobhan. And now I'm going to sign off in my native Irish language, which is Gaeilge. It's my first language. English is my second language. And I think I speak English now better than the Queen of England, but that's easy, she said. So Sin Scéal, that means that's a story. Agus Béis Scéal, that means we'll have another story. Agus Gudí Sin, until then, I'm going to say Slán, which means goodbye. Saying goodbye to you, Jim. And I'm saying thank you. And goodbye to my listeners. And we always play some music, Ode to Joy. So I want to say Ode to Joy for James Prendergast and Siobhan and everyone that's going to enjoy St. Patrick's Day Parade. So bye for now.